Hey folks, 10-minute tier time. This time looking at disaster movies. So let's get straight on with it. Okay, usual rules, 5 different tiers, starting from the bottom going up, so tier 5 being the worst tier. Don't be scared, they're shit with feet, which is from Daylight. Flying around on my ass is from the Poseidon Adventure. What are you doing with a gun in space is Armageddon. A shrine to all the bullshit in the world is from the Towering Inferno. And finally, life will go on, we will prevail. That's the top tier. That's where all the movies that I think are the best will go. So, okay, starting with 2012, a movie that I think came out in 2009, so kind of missed a bit of a trick there. This is one of those disaster movies that has all types of disasters rolled into one. Everything goes wrong at once. There's tidal waves, there's earthquakes, there's flooding, there's absolutely everything. So, it is a movie that jumps the shark quite ridiculously a lot of the time. So I'm just going to put it in the middle. It's fun. It's not a movie that I tend to go back to, but it's going in the middle tier there. So what are you doing with a gun in space? Daylight. I actually rather like Daylight. Stallone's first stab at a disaster movie about a car crash in the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, the tunnel that goes from Manhattan to New York. And yeah, all sorts of leakage going on in that film. Daniel Harris is in this film as well. It's fun. I think it's really fun. I'm looking forward to the 4K that's coming out soon. I haven't checked it out for a few years, so I'm going to be watching it soon. But I thought it was good when it first came out. It was one of those traditional kind of ensemble casts. Stallone's own son, Sage Stallone, is in there. I can't tell you how many times it took me to say Stallone's own son, Sage. Never mind, forget it. Who else have we got in there? Viggo Mortensen was in there, Amy Brennan, Daniel Harris, like I said, and Stan Shaw. A good ensemble. I think it's a pretty good movie, and I'm going to put it up there. A shrine to all the bullshit in the world. Deep Impact. So back in 1998, I think it was, I was working in the cinema and we had a couple of movies that were very similar. It was like the times when movies like Wyatt Earp and Tombstone came out around the same time. This time we had Deep Impact and Armageddon. Deep Impact was more of a kind of plot-led movie, whereas Armageddon was more kind of crash bang wallop. But Deep Impact was good, was decent. I guess of the two, I think I prefer the crash bang wallop, the Michael Bay one, but Deep Impact's still pretty decent. It's not aged as well as Armageddon when you look at it, but I'm going to put it in the middle there, next to 2012. Earthquake, Charlton Heston, another ensemble picture back in the 70s. ITV and BBC, the two networks in the UK. Back in the late 70s, I think it was, they had Earthquake on one side and Towering Inferno on the other. And I nearly cried when my mum and dad told me I was watching Towering Inferno. I hadn't seen Towering Inferno, and God, I'm glad I did. Earthquake doesn't hold up very well. It's some really ropey effects in this film. It's not up to the standard of Poseidon and Towering Inferno. So I'm going to put it down in Flying Around on My Ass. Greenland, a comet hurtling towards Earth. Gerard Butler, who else was in there? Scott Glenn, Marina Bakarin. It was okay. I think it was one of those a disaster movie. I think Butler had already done one a few years before, which we'll touch on in a minute. Not bad. Okay. I do believe they're doing another Greenland. It's coming soon. But do we need it? Did we need the first one? This one was directed by the guy who did, what was his name now? Rick Roman War, I think his name was. He did Angel Has Fallen. So there was that relationship there with him and Gerard Butler. Film's fine. It's okay. I think I've watched it once. No, I don't care to really watch it again. But it's not a bad movie. I'm going to put it in Flying Around on My Ass. Meteor, probably one of the worst disaster movies of the 70s in my eyes. Boring. The whole thing's about how we prevent the meteor coming down to Earth. I can't even remember if it actually does come down to Earth in the end. But yeah, dull as dishwater after watching the likes of Poseidon, even The Swarm, things like that. So I'm going to put that in. Don't be scared. They're just shit with feet. Next up, we have Moonfall. This force knocks the moon off its orbit and sends it hurtling towards Earth. and you have a bunch of people there on who've got to try and stop it. It's a Roland Emmerich film. Really, I mean, like Roland Emmerich on a budget. This film's terrible. Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, Donald Sutherland. I'm going to put it at the bottom. This film bored me. It really did. The remake of Poseidon wasn't too good. Kurt Russell's about the best thing in it. I think it was Wolfgang Peterson that directed it, if I remember rightly. This is going back. This is like nearly 20 years old now, this film. It doesn't have the adrenaline and the pacing that the original Poseidon movie had. And it doesn't have Gene Hackman, unfortunately. Flying Around on My Ass for the remake of Poseidon. Next up is Geostorm. This kind of follows a satellite designer who tries to save the world when a storm of kind of like gargantuan proportions causes a malfunction of all the kind of climate control satellites. Absolute tosh. It makes no sense whatsoever. Again, another Butler a disaster movie, but fucking disaster movie being the right word. Geostorm's going into Flying Around on My Ass. Really didn't care for that one whatsoever. Kind of modern day retelling of Towering Inferno-ish. The Rock, who has one leg for some reason in this film, trying to save his family in this huge skyscraper that's on fire. I think there's a loose plot involving some sort of Die Hard-like siege or something. I can't remember. I watched it the once. I found it pretty boring, pretty dull. And for some reason in the movie, he ends up jumping between skyscrapers with a wooden leg. It kind of all fell apart in this film, I think. Again, Flying Around on My Ass for this one. The Day After. For those of you that haven't seen The Day After is a TV movie directed by Nick Meyer, who did Wrath of Khan. It's all about what happens when a nuclear bomb goes off in Kansas. And it's pretty bleak. I remember when it was on the TV in the UK, there were warnings on the show beforehand telling us that even in the ad breaks, there were warnings. In this section of the movie, the bomb's going to go off and you may want to lock your kids away and all that kind of stuff. It was grim. Looks very dated nowadays. I have watched it in the last few years, but was pretty frightening back then, but not as frightening as the UK equivalent that came out around the same time called Threads. But for what this did for scaring the shit out of me as a kid, I'm going to put it in What Are You Doing with a Gun in Space? And from that, What Are You Doing with a Gun in Space, to Armageddon, where that line comes from. I actually really like this movie. I really do. I think it's a lot of fun. It just never stops from beginning to end, even though the movie's close to 3 hours. I think it's like 2 hours 40 or something. There's a director's cut out there, which I used to have. I don't know what happened to it. But yeah, this is a movie that's crying out for a 4K version. Please, Disney, get your act together. Armageddon, The Rock, Con Air, we need these 4Ks. Face Off as well. I like Armageddon. I love the score to it, Trevor Rabin's score. Gonna put it up here, a shrine to all the bullshit in the world. Tomorrow, or Day After Tomorrow, I think it's called. The Roland Emmerich thriller where ice chases people down the street. Complete cobblers, absolute cobblers, but is fun. Jake Gyllenhaal and others, I can't remember the cast now. Only seen it once. I saw a preview screening a week or so before it came out. 20 years ago maybe now. And it was fun. Crowd liked it. It's a notch above Moonfall, I think, but not as good as Independence Day, which I didn't want to call a disaster movie. I wanted to call a sci-fi movie, so I'm not going to put it on here. But yeah, I'm going to put it in the middle there. What Are You Doing with a Gun in Space for The Day After Tomorrow? Next up, Poseidon Adventure. No messing around, going straight to the top. Irwin Allen, genius when it came to these movies in the 70s. Not everything worked that he took his hand to, but Poseidon Adventure, that cast, Red Buttons, Ernest Borgnine, Gene Hackman, Grandpa Joe's in there from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Leslie Nielsen. Who else have we got? Shelley Winters. Huge cast. I watched it again the other week after Gene Hackman passed, and it still holds up. Shouting angry Hackman in this film. If there's any shouting that I can put up with, it's Gene Hackman shouting, and not the Goonies. Okay, The Swarm. The Swarm is one of those ones that kind of was fun when I was a kid. All these bloody bees getting out and stinging everybody, and another Irwin Allen production. Big ensemble cast. I think Henry Fonda was in it, if I remember rightly. But yeah, it doesn't hold up at all. It really doesn't hold up. I'm going to put it in Flying Around on My Ass. The Towering Inferno. The daddy. The granddaddy. The godfather of all these movies. Right to the top there. My mum's favourite movie of all time. She introduced me to it, and I never tire of watching this film. Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, William Holden, Richard Chamberlain, Robert Wagner. Just this massive cast. Absolutely massive cast. The best disaster movie in my eyes of all time. What have we got next? When Time Ran Out, another Irwin Allen disaster movie. Was a bit of a disaster because they just didn't know how to market this film. In fact, in some areas, they marketed it as a comedy, which is ridiculous. Burgess Meredith, Paul Newman, Jacqueline Bisset, Mr. Miyagi's even in this film, Pat Morita. And yeah, it's all about a volcano going off on a tropical island, and Burgess Meredith plays some sort of tight walker, and he has to... He gets, I think he gets, does he get blinded or somebody? Ernest Borgnine's in it. He gets blinded. That's it. I forgot now. I'm trying to do this in 10 minutes without any rehearsal or any kind of research or anything. This is all off memory. So When Time Ran Out is fun, but not the best Irwin Allen picture. And I'm going to put it in What Are You Doing with a Gun in Space? Airport 77. Airport 77 is the label, but I'm going to lump all the airport movies into this. So you had Airport 75, Airport 77, and Airport 79, The Concorde. All good fun. Airport 77 is probably my favorite. That's the one where they crash into the Bermuda Triangle, and Christopher Lee's like an Olympic swimmer or something like that, and has to have a go at saving people swimming out of the plane and all that kind of nonsense. Fun. But they're not the best disaster movies, but they're fun. They were great as a kid watching these. Funnily enough, the one that you thought was going to be the best one, which was Airport 80, The Concorde, or Airport 79 if you're in the US, turned out to be probably one of the more boring ones. But going in the middle there, What Are You Doing with a Gun in Space? Cassandra Crossing. I love the Cassandra Crossing. If you haven't seen the Cassandra Crossing, this is great. This is Burt Lancaster. This is Richard Harris. This is Martin Sheen. This is Anne Turkel. O.J. Simpson, who also was in Towering Inferno as well. Do we talk about O.J. Simpson these days? I don't know. Cassandra Crossing is fun. A lot of fun about a virus outbreak on a train, and the idea is to kill everybody off on the train, but the people that are on the train fight back as the virus people start to get better. Richard Harris running around with a turtleneck, which is what he seemed to do all the time in the 70s with a machine gun. Great stuff. Going right up there to the second tier, shrine to all the bullshit in the world. Titanic. Never a fan of Titanic, unfortunately. Yeah. It's one of those films I've seen once or twice. Couldn't really care less for it. It didn't really get interesting for me until the boat hit the iceberg. But I can kind of admire it for what it's done to cinema and how much effort and work went into this movie. So I'm going to put it in the middle there. A lot of people will be cross with that, but Titanic's not my favorite in terms of disaster movies. Chernobyl. If you haven't seen Chernobyl, you should see it. It's a mini-series. It's not technically a movie. However, I wanted to put it in here because I do think it is one of the bravest bits of filmmaking over the last 10 years. It's incredible. It's heartbreaking. It's stylized. It's really cool the way that they threw all this together. The cast are excellent. It's gritty. It's dirty. It just pulls no punches whatsoever. And I'm going to put it to the top. Life will go on. We will prevail. So, let's have a look at that from the bottom up. Tier 5, Don't Be Scared, They're Just Shit with Feet, has Moonfall and Meteor. Flying Around on My Ass is Tier 4 with Earthquake, Greenland, Poseidon, Geostorm, Skyscraper, and The Swarm. What Are You Doing with a Gun in Space has 2012, Deep Impact, The Day After Tomorrow, When Time Ran Out, and Titanic. Tier 2, A Shrine to All the Bullshit in the World, has Daylight, Armageddon, Airport 77, and the Cassandra Crossing. And Life Will Go On, We Will Prevail has Poseidon Adventure, Towering Inferno, and Chernobyl. And if I had to rank them in any order, I would rank them Towering Inferno first, Chernobyl second, Poseidon Adventure in third. So that's it, folks. That is my disaster tier ranking. Sorry if that was a bit erratic. I wanted to get it out of the way. I put a few more titles than what I expected into it. There were 21 titles or something like that. Not easy when you've got 30 seconds to talk about each. And I do want to talk about these things, and sometimes I get carried away with that. But again, thanks for all the support with the channel. It's been a lot of fun. The Video Nasties episodes have been doing incredibly well. I've managed to get monetized already. Just after a period of like 6 or 7 weeks, which is just insane. And that's testament to you guys and how you've been kind of following the channel and checking it out and watching all my videos and stuff. More videos to come. I'm going to do a Video Nasties episode, probably the final one this weekend, on my favorite Video Nasties, which hasn't been done yet. We've talked about 4 different other people's Video Nasties, but not the ones that I actually like. So join me for that. Also, don't forget to check out TSL Movie Podcast. The links are down below. And also Frankly Speaking as well, which is my co-host on TSL Movie Podcast, Frank Riker, his solo channel. That's it, folks. I shall see you very soon. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.